This list documents aircraft operated by the German Luftwaffe during the Second World War, covering the period from 1939 to 1945. Aircraft are identified primarily according to the WWII Air Ministry, or RLM, designation system, which standardized German military aircraft classifications. Although the Luftwaffe was officially established in 1933 and dissolved in 1945, pilot training and aircraft development had begun quietly in the 1920s, prior to the Nazi seizure of power. As a result, several aircraft designed during the interwar period continued to see service during World War II. The most historically significant aircraft that actively participated in the conflict are highlighted. Pre-war aircraft that were no longer in service after 1938 are excluded, as are experimental projects and designs that never achieved flight status. The roles listed reflect each aircraft's primary operational function during the war, although many outdated combat aircraft were later reassigned as training platforms rather than frontline machines. Captured or acquired foreign aircraft are listed separately. While many of these were used solely for evaluation, aircraft obtained in sufficient numbers were commonly employed as trainers. A limited number were also utilized by the Reich Air Ministry for administrative and testing purposes. Most aircraft followed official RLM designations, though a small number of pre-1933 aircraft fell outside this system and retained their original manufacturer designations. Number 1, listed under RLM designation 192. The WWII 192 Kurier was a German military transport aircraft developed in the mid-1930s. This aircraft conducted its first flight in 1935, at a time when Germany was rebuilding and reorganizing its air capabilities. Production of the AO-1 remained extremely limited, with only 6 aircraft constructed. Rather than serving in combat roles, the Kurier was assigned primarily to senior government and military officials, functioning as a liaison and executive transport aircraft. Although its operational impact during the Second World War was minimal, the WWII 192 represents an early phase in the development of Germany's military aviation infrastructure. Number 2, designated under RLM. Number 66. The Arado R-66 was a primary training aircraft that played a crucial role in the early development of Luftwaffe pilots. The aircraft made its first flight in 1932, during the interwar period when Germany was quietly rebuilding its air training infrastructure. Produced in large numbers, with approximately 1,456 aircraft built, the AR-66 became one of the most widely used basic trainers in Germany throughout the 1930s and into the early years of the Second World War. The aircraft featured a biplane configuration, which provided excellent stability and forgiving flight characteristics. Although technologically outdated by the time World War II began, the Arado R-66 remained in extensive service as a training platform, preparing thousands of Luftwaffe pilots for more advanced aircraft. Its reliability and simplicity ensured its continued use even as more modern trainers entered service, making TR-66 a foundational element of Germany's wartime pilot training system. Number 3, listed under RLM designation 68. The Arado AR-68 was a biplane fighter aircraft that marked a transitional phase in German military aviation. The aircraft conducted its first flight in 1934, at a time when the Luftwaffe was moving rapidly from biplane designs toward more advanced monoplane fighters. Originally developed as a fighter aircraft, the AR-68 entered full production, with approximately 511 units built. However, rapid advances in aviation technology soon rendered the aircraft obsolete by 1939, even before the outbreak of the Second World War. Despite its obsolescence, the Arado AR-68 continued to serve the Luftwaffe in secondary roles, most notably as an advanced trainer and, in limited numbers, as an early night fighter during the initial stages of the war. Its biplane configuration, while outdated, provided stability and maneuverability that made it suitable for training and specialized operations. Although it never achieved prominence in frontline combat, the Arado AR-68 played an important supporting role by bridging the gap between pre-war fighter designs and the modern combat aircraft that would define Luftwaffe operations during World War II. Number 4, designated under RLM, number 76. The Arado AR-76 was a German advanced training aircraft developed during the early expansion of the Luftwaffe. The aircraft made its first flight in 1934, as Germany worked to establish a structured and standardized pilot training program, produced in limited numbers. With approximately 189 aircraft built, the AR-76 was intended to prepare pilots for the transition from basic trainers to frontline combat aircraft. Its design emphasized handling precision and control, allowing trainee pilots to develop the skills required for more demanding operational aircraft. Although it did not see widespread combat service, the Arado AR-76 fulfilled an important role within the Luftwaffe's training system during the pre-war period, in the early years of World War II. By the late 1930s, the aircraft was gradually replaced by more modern trainers, but its contribution to pilot preparation made it a valuable part of Germany's early military aviation infrastructure. Number 5. Assigned RLM. Designation 80. The Arado AR-80 was an experimental fighter aircraft developed as part of Germany's search for a new generation of modern combat designs. The aircraft conducted its first flight in 1935, during a period of rapid innovation as the Luftwaffe evaluated competing concepts for future frontline fighters. Only 3 prototypes of the AR-80 were constructed, reflecting its role as a test and evaluation platform rather than a production aircraft. One of its most significant contributions was its use in testing Fowler flaps, an advanced high-lift device designed to improve takeoff and landing performance while maintaining combat effectiveness. Although the Arado AR-80 was ultimately unsuccessful in securing a production contract, the data gathered from its flight tests proved valuable. Lessons learned from the aircraft influenced later German fighter designs, highlighting the AR-80's importance as a technological stepping stone in the evolution of Luftwaffe aircraft during the pre-war years. Number 6. Designated under RLM number 95. The Arado R-95 was a versatile aircraft developed in the mid-1930s for training and maritime operations. The aircraft made its first flight in 1936, at a time when Germany was expanding both its air training programs and its interest in naval aviation. Production of the AR-95 remained limited, with approximately 27 aircraft built, primarily for export rather than widespread domestic use. Configured as a seaplane, the AR-95 was capable of operating from coastal waters and harbors, making it suitable for naval training and reconnaissance-related instruction. Although it did not play a direct combat role during the Second World War, the Arado AR-95 contributed to the development of aircrew skills in maritime environments. Its service highlights Germany's efforts to design adaptable aircraft for both training and export markets during the interwar period. Number 7. Assigned RLM designation 96. The Arado AR-96 was the Luftwaffe's standard advanced training aircraft on the eve of the Second World War. The aircraft made its first flight in 1938, just as Germany was preparing for large-scale aerial operations across Europe, produced in very large numbers. With approximately 2,891 aircraft built, the R-96 became a cornerstone of the Luftwaffe's pilot training system. It was specifically designed to bridge the gap between basic trainers and high-performance frontline combat aircraft, familiarizing pilots with modern flight characteristics, retractable landing gear, and higher speeds. Throughout the war, the Arado AR-96 trained thousands of fighter, bomber, and reconnaissance pilots, remaining in service from the opening campaigns through the later stages of the conflict. Its reliability, standardized design, and widespread use make the R-96 one of the most important training aircraft in German aviation history. Number 8. Designated under RLM number 196. The Arado AR-196 was a shipborne reconnaissance seaplane and one of the most successful naval aircraft operated by Germany during the Second World War. The aircraft conducted its first flight in 1937, as the Kriegsmarine and Luftwaffe sought a reliable aerial reconnaissance platform for surface fleet operations. Produced in substantial numbers, with approximately 541 aircraft built, the AR-196 was designed to be catapult-launched from warships, including cruisers and battleships. Its robust floatplane configuration allowed it to operate effectively in harsh maritime environments, performing reconnaissance, patrol, and light combat missions. Throughout the war, the Arado R-196 served across the Atlantic, Baltic, and Mediterranean theaters, providing critical intelligence on enemy ship movements and coastal activity. Reliable, versatile, and well-armed for its class, the AR-196 became the primary naval reconnaissance seaplane of the German fleet, earning a reputation as one of the Luftwaffe's most effective maritime aircraft. Number 9, listed under RLM designation 197. The Arado AR-197 was an experimental carrier-based fighter aircraft developed for Germany's planned aircraft carrier program. The aircraft made its first flight in 1937, as the Luftwaffe explored naval aviation concepts in support of the Kriegsmarine. Only 3 prototypes of the AR-197 were constructed, reflecting its strictly experimental role. The design was derived from the Arado R-68, incorporating modifications intended for carrier operations, including structural reinforcement and equipment suitable for naval use. Despite promising test results, the Arado R-197 never entered production. Germany's carrier program was ultimately abandoned, and rapid advances in monoplane fighter design rendered the biplane-based R-197 obsolete. Nevertheless, the aircraft represents an important what might have been chapter in German naval aviation history, highlighting early efforts to develop a carrier-capable fighter force. Number 10, designated under RLM number 198. The Arado R-198 was an experimental reconnaissance aircraft developed in the late 1930s as the Luftwaffe evaluated new concepts for battlefield observation. The aircraft conducted its first and only flight during a period of rapid technological transition in German military aviation. Only one prototype of the AR-198 was constructed, underscoring its role as a test platform rather than an operational aircraft. The design focused on improving visibility and reconnaissance efficiency, reflecting the Luftwaffe's growing emphasis on tactical intelligence and coordination with ground forces. Despite these intentions, the Arado R-198 failed to meet performance expectations and was not developed further. Although the project contributed to the broader understanding of reconnaissance aircraft requirements and illustrates the experimental path Germany followed in refining its aerial observation capabilities before and during the early years of World War II. And that concludes our look at the first 10 aircraft of the German Luftwaffe, spanning from early trainers and biplanes to experimental and seaplane designs. These aircraft reflect the rapid evolution of German aviation from the interwar period through the outbreak of the Second World War, from basic trainers like the Arado AR-66 and AR-76, to reconnaissance seaplanes like the Arado AR-196, and experimental prototypes such as the AR-80 and AR-198. Each played its part, whether in preparing pilots, testing new technologies, or supporting naval and frontline operations. If you found this overview informative, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you won't miss our upcoming videos, where we continue exploring the full list of Luftwaffe aircraft and their fascinating histories. This compilation is based on research from Wikipedia, one of the most widely recognized and authentic platforms for historical aircraft data, ensuring the accuracy of the information presented. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the world of World War II aviation, uncovering the stories behind Germany's most iconic and experimental aircraft.